Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the GT3 World Championship here on RCI TV. We're here for round 6 of the championship for Split 1, the pros, and we're here at Misano, the Marco Simoncelli circuit, for two 30-minute sprint races here tonight around beautiful circuit under the lights. And alongside me to take you through all the action here today will be everyone's favorite American around here, Jesse Lee. How are you doing tonight?
I am fantastic. Hello, everybody out there watching on RCI TV. This is race 8, round 6, and we have two 30-minute races coming up for you this evening, all taking place, as Mr. Ryan Gill said, under the lights. And, well, the elephant in the room, Ryan, is 20 cars tonight. Quite a bit of sign-outs for this round. We still managed 20 cars. And I think we're still going to have a fantastic couple of races tonight at a very technical racetrack.
Yeah, Misano, very tricky and twisty circuit, but it does offer up some good racing. And as we come towards the end of the practice session, well, there's some familiar looking cars at the top of the table, but George Boothby is at the top for practice. Here's Jaroslav Honzik crossing the line, and he's improving slightly on his practice time before he grinds to a halt. That looks like the end of his practice session, but it is George Boothby topping the timing sheets at this point in time with 2 minutes of practice remaining. And that's quite an important thing to point out, Jesse, because, well, last week in the 2 hours of Silverstone, James Parker retook the lead of the championship. And, well, George Boothby looks like he wants to take it back here tonight.
Well, most importantly for George Boothby is he is within striking distance. He's only 6 points out of this championship as we enter the latter half of the thing, and he has everything to play for. Each race so very, very important. You know, it's worth mentioning James Parker would be leading this championship by a ton had it not been for just 2 pretty awful races for him. But Boothby has hung in there the entire time, and whenever James Parker has suffered some of his terrible finishes, Boothby has still parked it inside the top 5, and that's what's kept this championship alive, considering that if you look at the wins, James Parker's been racking them up. Boothby no slouch either, but the championship very tight, and tonight could go a long way in determining who wins this thing in a month's time.
It definitely could. And, of course, speaking of the remaining races of this championship, of course, we do have the two 30-minute sprint races here tonight. We do then have two 30-minute sprint races at Donington Park, and then we end the season with a 75-minute race around Suzuka. So still plenty of racing to come this season. And, of course, plenty of racing to come in some of the other championships going on around. And, of course, the World Tour returns this weekend as well. Jesse Lee and myself will be bringing you that tomorrow.
I know those
evening.
guys.
Yeah, I know them as well. They're pretty cool guys. But they'll be bringing you the action tomorrow evening for the 3 hours of Donington Park. Fantastic to see one of the new British GT circuits making its way onto the World Tour calendar. But we'll remain here in the present. And in the present, George Boothby looks like he's going to end the session as the top car, and we see Konstantin Soldatov.
I feel like that was a little bit on purpose there. I feel like he was attempting to drift.
Probably was. I think maybe an invalidated lap. You know what? Just end it out in style. And Alban Bouquet is only going to be 13th fastest in practice at this point in time. Waiting for Steele Vason to cross the line at this point as well. He's only going to be 6th. But of course, practice doesn't really tell you that much of the story. We're going to be looking more towards qualifying to see who the real pace setters are. And then, of course, the race here tonight. We will have 2 qualifying sessions, remember, everyone, tonight, as we did have out at Snetterton and Kyalami as well. So 2 chances for someone to put the car on pole position here tonight, and we could have 2 completely different grids for each race. But we will focus on towards the qualifying session coming up in just a moment. 20 cars on the grid here tonight. We've had a few sign-outs, unfortunately. But tell you what, it doesn't really make a large grid to get some great races. And hopefully, the 20 cars that we have on track here tonight will deliver some fantastic racing. In the meantime, here we go then. It is time for qualifying. Qualifying taking place at 9 p.m. So just a bit later than the time in which the race will take place. But they only have 10 minutes to go out on track and set those lap times. There's been rumors of rain in the air across the practice sessions this week. But looks like there's no rain coming out for the first qualifying session of the evening, Jesse.
Yes, very much so. Of course, pole position is very important. Also good for your final standings, especially at a place like this. There is a lot of overtaking opportunities at Misano, but also the other thing we haven't really mentioned, points, Ryan, points.
Yeah, we do have points to get on to later this evening. Of course, James Parker, he leads the championship, but of course, a race win here tonight is not worth the same that it was out at the 2 hours of Silverstone. And that's going to be one of the important things to remember here tonight. There's half points on offer for anything that goes around here tonight. So half points for any fastest laps, half points for pole position, and half points for each of the 2 races here tonight. So there's a bit less room to catch up to your opponents, unless you could do a double win here today, in which we have seen earlier on in the season. But it's going to be one of those things for people to keep an eye on. But of course, every point does count, and James Parker at this point in time, 6 points clear of George Boothby in the championship. That's very, very close, and of course, he's going to want to earn some points here today. But George Boothby, the Ferrari is quick around here, and I tell you what, he's going to want to retake this lead.
He very much is, and to only be 6 points out this late in the championship, there's still a lot of work to do, obviously, but that has to reaffirm your championship contention. And no offense to anyone else, the reason we're talking about Parker and Boothby is because they are the 2 that are the closest together, and they are right away at the top. Keep in mind, if they falter, well, you've got Samard back in 4th place, and you've got Jardia in 3rd, so anything is possible. It's just that they are a bit further out, and a 6-point gap at this point in the season kind of tells you the tale of the tape. Boothby's been fairly darn consistent inside the top 5, hasn't had the highest of highs that maybe James Parker has, but he has had a bit more consistency. Parker posted I think it was a 22nd or 23rd place finish at some point early in the season, and also a 10th place finish. And both of those times, well, George Boothby was able to park his car inside the top 5, and that, again, the big disparage in the points gap. But for right now, everything up for grabs here at Misano, what I assume is a sunset. All dry on the racetrack right now, as George Boothby coming across the line will finish his first lap. This will be the benchmark, and the benchmark is a 33.267. Now, I was in the driver's lounge before the race, Ryan, and they did mention that they reckoned if it was cool enough that the Ferraris, maybe a Merc, could do a 32. Well, it isn't that cool right now.
It isn't, but we saw 33 zeros out from George Boothby in practice, so it's not unrealistic to think that they could go slightly quicker than that come qualifying. And George Boothby, with a 33.2, puts himself in a very, very good position to go quicker on his second lap around. And as I say that, he is just about 4.5 tenths up on his lap time at this point. So that 32, definitely within the reach of the 666. Meanwhile, Alban Bouquet putting the Porsche provisionally second after the first round of laps. And then you can see Cody Pride as well, who had a fantastic race out at Silverstone and stole the fastest lap of the race on the final lap. He's currently got his McLaren in 3rd place at this point in time, but we'll stay with George Boothby for the moment. Comes through the hairpin at the end of the kinks. He's only got 2 corners to go now. Finds himself half a second up on his lap time. Just got to keep it clean now. Into the final corner.
Oh, this is going to be a stonking lap.
Nice and wide. Doesn't invalidate the lap. Up towards the timing line. It's going to be half a second up. It's a 32.7 from George Boothby. And that, well, the gauntlet has well and truly been laid down now.
It absolutely has. As Jardier comes across the line, he's going to slide into second, still 3/4 of a second behind the pace that Boothby can lay down. That 33.489 would have been 2/10 slower than Boothby's slow first lap. And just as we say that, Darren King comes in, puts himself in the second place position, still 5/10 out of the number 1 spot. Valentin Beria, who we have documented several times this season, just hasn't had any luck but bad luck, barring one good finish at Snetterton Race 2 a few weeks ago. But right now on the provisional podium for the start of the race, up in 3rd place, King and Honzik have come into pit road. So they will reset here, maybe get one more lap out of it, or maybe they are waving the white flag early here. Here's look, Vanka coming to get the final turn and get to the line down in 16th place. What can the Porsche driver for Esports Performance Racing Team get to as they come to the line? Just a couple positions up, but better than nothing. 14th at a 34.275.
Yeah, we knew the Ferraris were going to be quick around here. This is kind of like home turf for them, better than Monza. Oh, they always called Monza the home of Ferrari, but Misano definitely seems to suit the Ferraris much more than Monza does. And definitely seeing that here with the top 3 being Ferraris. Got 4 of them in the top 10. James Parker, though, the championship leader, comes around the final corner. He's half a second up on his lap time as well. Cody Pride returns to the pit lane. Here comes James Parker, though, crosses the line up into the top 10,
Ooh,
but only 9th.
Well, he's going to have more opportunity here, 2 more laps to improve upon 9th place, and he needs to do that. You do not want to be in the middle of the pack at Misano with all of these tight corners that you start this circuit with. The whole T1 section, or the whole, sector 1 section is a bit tight, and you do not want to be in the middle. That just gives you more opportunity for drama. So any improvement from Parker, he will appreciate that. And of course, he knows the importance of getting a good finish here today, doing the best that he possibly can, trying to chase that world championship here in about 5 races time. What can Bella Sane do now in the 9th place position, coming around the final couple of corners for H3 Racing? One of the few Ferraris we don't see near the top of the grid. Cody Pride has slotted in to the 3rd place position in the number 1 McLaren. Mark of the Beast, the deficit he is behind. What can Bella Sane do? Currently 9th, coming to the line, will not improve. Will Bella Sane. James Parker looking to pick up again, a 33.645 the last time by. Coming to the line, does he improve? Yes, he does. Does a 33.558, gets up to 9th, and is going to end his qualifying at that point.
James Parker obviously feeling he can't get any more out of the Aston Martin. 9th place is the best he will do. Alexander Karsten in the Bentley, sitting 5th at this point in time. It's a good qualifying so far for Karsten for 2 SRL Esports. Joseph Honzik sitting just behind in 6th place at the moment, provisionally on the grid, but no one can get anywhere near the likes of George Boothby's time, half a second up on Darren King in 2nd place. Absolutely storming lap from the man that wants to retake the lead of the championship. Here comes Karsten up towards the line. He's half a second up on his time. He's going to put the Bentley on the front row of the grid provisionally, and that split the Ferraris. Cody Pride did it a moment ago with Darren King and Valentin Barrier, and now Alexander Karsten has done it with Darren King and George Boothby. Here's Alban Bouquet, He's up on his lap time as well. Not by as much as the likes of Alexander Karsten, but Bouquet still looking to improve. He was quite far down in practice, but having a much better time out in qualifying. He won't get to the line before time expires, so this is going to be his final lap. Comes around the corner here. Gains time coming out of the final corner up towards the timing line. And has this been... it has been invalidated, so that's not going to count. So Bouquet, 8th. That's only the best that he can do.
That sucks for Bouquet, because that would have been a top 5 starting position easy had he not invalidated the lap. Alexander Karsten, the star so far of this session, showing that he can keep up with the Ferraris here at Misano in the big bad flying Bentley. Only about a quarter of a second down is Karsten in the 22 SRL Esports Bentley. Coming around the final couple of corners, getting ready to come to the line. Can he improve? Can he challenge for the pole? Time has expired. All flying laps count. Where will he go? He will improve, but not enough. Half of a tenth slower than the pole sitter. The only real challenger, Alexander Karsten. It is going to be a Ferrari Bentley front row, unless maybe this Aston can say something about it, and no, indeed, they will not. And what a spirited finish to qualifying, with a surprise on the front row.
Well, I think George Boothby might have had a few concerns about him when he saw Alexander Karsten up on his time, but 51 thousandths of a second is all it will be. And George Boothby, he will take pole position for the first race here at Misano this evening. And Jaroslav Honzik also improving on his final lap of the first qualifying session, going from 7th place up to 4th. So Jardia finding himself lining up alongside Darren King. We'll get into the full grid in just a moment. But before we do that, it's time for the championship standings. Let's see where everyone is at this point in time. So here we go then. James Parker did retake the lead of the championship after Silverstone in fantastic style as well. George Boothby just second in the championship. 6 points separates those two. And Jardia, well, he's only 14 points off the top as well. So a good race for him here tonight. He could close the gap up towards James Parker as well. Felipe Samard, yet without a podium, a win, or a pole position in this championship. Only one fastest lap to his name, but he's level on points with Alban Bouquet for 4th place in the championship. 164 points for Milton Steele-Vason. He's in 6th. 7th is Alexander Karsten, who's obviously put his Bentley on the front row of the grid now. Herbert Frischel in the NSX, the 143. The 86, with 143 points. He's towards the back of the grid for this race. Ismail Lebrec unfortunately signed out of the championship, and Fabian Pippert, who we usually see coming in clutch towards the end of qualifying, he's still in the top 10 of the championship. Moving on to the second page, Hamza Bel Hussein with 138 points, followed by Simon Keeble. Jordan Grant-Smith not present here tonight, neither is Joe McCauley. Cody Pride jumped up the standings massively with that second place that he picked up at Silverstone. He'll be looking to build on that. Grant Willamot with 94 points. He's just outside of the 3-digit marks with the points. John Clements in 17th. Christopher Verstappen in 18th. Konstantin Soldatov 19th. And Darren King, who of course was a late entry into this championship, he's got 62 points to his name as he rounds out the top 20. Juraj Svenček in 21st. Loic Vanak in 22nd. He's only 1 point ahead of both Christopher Tavrayan and Valentin Barrier. Harry Conway and Billy Octane no longer competing in the championship, unfortunately. João Cavaca, Daniel Jose Horhus is out for this evening. Kieran Prendergast, I do not believe, is present this evening either, as well as Dave van der Neet. So all of those guys not present this evening. And finishing up the standings, Ivan Shermatinsky, no longer in the championship either. Azevedo is signed out for this evening, as is Christian Larter. Oscar Houle, I do not believe, is present tonight either. And Adam Tompkins, unfortunately, had to sign out way earlier on in the championship, so he's the only driver with 0 points. But those are the standings. And we are just about 2 minutes away from the start of the first race here at Misano. The lights are out, the cars are on the grid, Jesse. And, I mean, it looks absolutely fantastic out here in the dark at Misano.
Well, perhaps most importantly right now, it is dry, so no wet start to race number 1. And of course, we are going to be racing under the lights, 20 cars, and a lot of the drivers that were forced to sign out this evening in Chad. And the general theme we're hearing is, well, you can't race on hotspot internet, and a lot of people dealing with internet connectivity issues and work-related issues. And sad to see you guys not on the track. Love seeing you, though, still with us on your Friday evening here on RCI TV. 20 cars on the grid, all looking to do the same thing today, and that is win a race. Well, it was looking all very so sweet for George Boothby until Karsten in the big bad Bentley decided that he was going to legitimately challenge for pole position. And you have to think now, Ryan, he has a legitimate challenge for the race as well.
He does have a legitimate challenge for the race. Karsten, realistically, not a championship contender at this point in time. He's just driving for himself and his own position in the championship, see what he can improve on. And, well, second place would be a fantastic result. But you know what? Everyone wants to be a winner. And that goes for all of these guys on the grid. And, of course, anything can happen. All of these guys do have the chance to win a race here tonight as all the lights start coming on. And George Boothby will start to lead them away. So this is the grid then for race 1. George Boothby on pole position with Alexander Karsten alongside him. Darren King and Jaroslav Honzik on the second row of the grid. Cody Pride and Valentin Barrier on the third row. Milton Stilvason and Alban Bouquet on the fourth row. And James Parker and Hazma Belhassain round out the top 10. The rest of the grid, Schwencek, Willamot, Soldatov, Piffert, Tavrayan, Keeble, Samard, Frechelle, Clements, and Vanak to round out the grid.
20 cars all the way in the darkness. No rain to speak of, despite the threat of it in the practice server. It has not amassed here at the start of race 1. Keep in mind, it's going to be a 30-minute race, a little sprint race here for you on your Friday night. And then we're going to have another qualifying session, and we're going to do it all again with race number 2. Well, this is a look back from your leader, looking at all of the cars behind as everybody attempts to put a little bit of heat in the tires and prepare themselves to do battle at a tight and twisty track. Well, Ryan, the last time you and I were here together, it was a steward's worst nightmare, as there was a lot of bump and runs that were deemed outside the limits of what is allowed here at RCI. Thoughts, expectations from tonight?
I mean, we've all seen what's happened this season. We can't pretend that Kyalami didn't exist. But you know what? We've all got to clear our minds. We've all got to hope that it's going to be better next time around. We've had some clean races in the Friday and Monday championships as of the last couple of rounds, and we'll be hoping that can kind of continue into these little sprint races. What we've heard for the feedback from the drivers is that these races, they're a bit exciting, but they can be quite chaotic. That's some of the feedback we're getting from the stewards as well. But you know what? We'll have to see. I mean, one of the best races we've ever commentated on, Jesse, was at this venue. Let's not forget the Ferrari versus Lambo event. Billy Octane and Harry Conway down to the final lap. That race went in the wet around here. It was an absolutely fantastic race to broadcast, and we can only hope that the race here tonight is going to be as exciting. But here we go then. 30 minutes of racing soon to be underway. They start to line up 2 by 2 as far as you can see. 10 rows here tonight. And it's going to be not the championship leader on the front row of the grid, but it's going to be one of the main championship contenders on pole position. Karsten alongside he's going to be looking to set his mark down on this championship. James Parker down in 9th at this point in time. The championship leader has work to do in race 1 this evening. They crawl up towards the line, the flag drops, and there's 3 drive-through penalties for being out of position on the grid right at the start throughout the field. But it's going to be an awful start for the likes of Alexander Karsten, as Darren King seems to get up the inside, and he is absolutely through. And now here comes Jaroslav Honzik as well. He's going to be looking to try and make up a place on the Bentley. The Merc goes up the inside. Karsten down to 4th, possibly down to 5th, as Cody Pride finds his way through, and everything that George Boothby wanted to go his way has just happened.
Well, it's an absolute nightmare of a start for Alexander Karsten as he continues to fall through the field. Still Vason attempting to defend very heavily from 3 wide behind them. No major incidences other than the drive-through penalties, and unknown if what exactly happened there. But it does look like Van Ax has been cleared, or something of that nature has happened. In fact, all the drive-through penalties have now been cleared as they're threatening to go 3 wide. As Svincek going to go down the inside here, a fake maneuver. You don't want to go 3 wide through some of these turns. There's going to be contact between the Lexus and the Ferrari, but no harm, no foul. But that will open up the, but look at that, it's a Bentley backwards on its own, and chaos ensues behind them. Now, how does one have a crash on a straightaway like that?
I think that was Svincek just losing it completely, and Soldatov might have got caught up with that completely. Regarding the drive-through penalties, I think the new protocol from the stewarding team is that all penalties on starts will be cleared and then investigated to see if they need to be reapplied. That is apparently the new protocol that I have been told, and that's the new protocol that I will be going forward with judging. So we may see those drive-through penalties be reapplied later on in the race. Meanwhile, still Vason, he's looking to make up places, and he's made up a place on Valentin Barrier. Barrier, who had qualified, was at 5th place, or 6th place, now down to 7th. Still Vason managing to get up. James Parker, by the way, he had a little bit of a bump from behind from Alban Bouquet on the first lap of the race, but no changes in place seem to have taken place there. In fact, James Parker is actually up to 8th place now. And George Boothby, well, Alexander Karsten went backwards, Darren King has gone forwards, and George Boothby hasn't been able to lose the Ferrari either, and Jaroslav Honzik, well, he's just lurking in behind as well.
Best case scenario for Jardier, keep in mind he's still in this championship in 3rd place, and he has everything to play for tonight as well, so he's being very smart in that Mercedes. Darren King, every single braking zone I've seen for the past lap or so, Darren King later on the brakes, getting the car wound up on the binders a lot better, and any gap that Boothby can pull, King immediately reels him back in at the end of the straightaway, though he's going to be off into the grass right here is Darren King. Excellent save, not easy to do over the big humped curbs, and not the easiest track to drive in the dark either, with all of the flat corners. But here is Alexander Karsten, qualified 2nd, was very nearly your pole sitter, just missed it by that much, and a nightmarish start, but a smart start from Karsten. Instead of fighting as hard as he could have fought, he found a space in line and is now back on it, and could very much get around Cody Pride here in the left-hander. We'll have to see as he goes down the inside, looking like he's going to be pressing. Will he be given room? That will be the case. Fight clearly on for 4th place between Pride and Karsten. Position to Karsten.
Karsten had a nightmarish start, but he does seem to have regained his composure at this point in time, and fortunately for him, the guys in front are not too far down the road. He's got clear sight of them, and he does have some time on his side. Just under 26 minutes to go in this race. Positions can still be made up, just as we saw there. So Alexander Karsten, he can recover from this bad start. He can throw himself back onto the podium. He just needs to put in much harder work than he previously would have needed to. But it's still on for the Bentley. Here's Bel Hussein, by the way, in 11th place. One of the Ferraris that hasn't found itself up towards the front of the grid, the number 8. doing his best at this point in time to stay ahead of Piffet and close down onto Grant Willamot in the Bentley. I have had confirmation from Tom Bryant, one of the stewards here this evening, that the drive-through penalties at the start that were cleared are now being investigated. So we may see some of those penalties reapplied if necessary, but good to know from the stewards that that is being investigated. And we'll have some more news on that for you all soon.
Well, that is well spotted. I was aware of that procedure. I've been a part of the stewarding team where that procedure was used, and I had just completely forgotten that that was the way that we go about it here. Bellassane getting worked over by Piffet. Piffet trying to prosper greatly with the reduced field size. He's going to have to go the long way around if he's going to try to make this pass on Bellassane. And the drive-through penalty for the 194 of Bouquet has been reapplied. That is a drive-through penalty for a start violation, I'm pretty sure, unless that is track limits already, but I'm willing to believe that that is a reapplied penalty, and yes, indeed, can confirm as well. Bellassane now, who was in that fight with Piffet, has also received his drive-through penalty for a start violation, and the 122 of Vanak, it has been reapplied, Ryan, like you said it might. So all three of those drivers by the stewards deemed to have been out of position on the start, and they still have to serve that penalty. They got, what, 3 laps?
Yeah, so they'll have 3 laps from this point onwards to serve those drive-through penalties. The new procedure, meaning that they will be investigated because of concerns that drivers have had of the start system maybe being too strict. So we did agree that we would investigate them for the live stewarded splits. And, well, the live stewards have had a look at them and they've decided, nope, those penalties were fair game and they've been reapplied as such. And those penalties will need to be served. So the drivers not getting away with it when they're clearly guilty for being out of position on the grid. Jaroslav Honzik now finding himself under pressure.
Thought he was going for it.
From Alexander Karsten, a recovering Alexander Karsten. I tell you what, Jesse, there aren't many more things terrifying than an enormous car in your mirrors like the Bentley or the BMW. And Alexander Karsten, who's looking quick right now as well, he wants to get past Jardier. And looking at his pace at this point in time, Jesse, I think he could challenge Boothby if he can keep up this pace.
Well, I think he can. Don't forget, in qualifying, he was half a second quicker than Jardier and Darren King. And I know qualifying pace isn't race pace. The two are very different, and you set the car different, the load is different, etc. But that kind of pace just doesn't magically evaporate because you put in a different fuel load and a different tire pressure setup. You still have that pace. And what you're seeing here is Karsten, who gave up so much on the start in the era of safety, in my opinion. He is coming back to the front in a big way. The gap between first and second, the biggest it's ever been right about now between Boothby and King at just under half of a second. But I don't think that Boothby's necessarily pulling away. I just think it's the ebb and the flow of King being better on the brakes. But here is the wing camera of Jardier looking back at Karsten, trying to put himself in a position to get a run down into a corner or off of a corner, anything to get that position back. This is for the final step of the podium. Keep in mind, very, very short race here in race 1, only 30 minutes and 9 minutes of that gone. No time to dilly-dally. You got to get a move on.
Someone in the chat saying that Jardier would do well to let him go, but a racing driver isn't going to let someone go, especially not in a sprint race where they think that they might be able to keep them behind. I mean, remember, 21 minutes. If Karsten gets past Jardier and he starts to clear off up the road, there's not really much that Jardier can do to recover from that, but if Jardier thinks he can keep him behind, he's well within his right to try. Alexander Karsten having a look on the inside, and he's turned it around.
Oh, no. That is the worst case scenario.
He stopped to give back the position, flash of the lights for an apology, and that's cost him 3 places as well. Alexander Karsten just too eager, too impatient to get that position done. Turned Jardier to the side. And unfortunately for him, it's cost him more places. Good to see the sportsmanship of not taking that place from Jardier, making sure to give it back, even lost places in the process. But you got to feel for Alexander Karsten there. That's going to make his job so much more difficult now if he wants to put that car on the podium.
Yes, it is. And for Jardier, that loses him nearly 2 seconds that he was up. He was right behind Darren King, and now he finds himself 3.5 seconds behind. So a few seconds lost. No positions lost for Jardier, but he is sort of several seconds behind. And an update for the drive-through penalties. Bella Sane has been disqualified for not coming in the allotted time to serve his penalty. So that's a disqualification for the number 8 Ferrari. Both Bouquet and Vanek have come in to pit road to serve that drive-through penalty for a start order violation. So that is the update to that, and both Bouquet and Vanek are back out on track. Keep in mind, there was no pit stop required in this race. Absolutely deadly, that drive-through penalty in such a short race, as we watch Karsten, who is trying to pick up the pieces. It was all going so well in qualifying in the race. It went away from him at the start, but it looked like it was coming back, and one move that doesn't come off, and then all of a sudden you are as far deep into the field as you have ever been.
Yeah, Alexander Karsten, race 1 not really going to plan at this point in time. Not going to plan for Bel Hussein either, or the other 2 drivers that found themselves with drive-through penalties being out of position on the grid. And of course, it's not always out of position on the grid. It could be speeding in the start sequence. Remember, you're limited to 70 kilometers per hour that you have to beat on the start order. So if you're slightly above that, you're going to find yourself with a drive-through penalty. And it seems that the 1-2-2, well, he's not done picking up penalties, because he's just picked up a penalty for track limits abuse. So Vanak's day goes from bad to worse. Cody Pride getting all out of shape. And that's going to allow Steele Vason through. And Valentin Barrier was having a look as well. But Cody Pride, who was working so hard to chase down Jardier, just gets out of touch. And that allows Steele Vason to go through comfortably.
Well, I had noticed that McLaren looked unsettled, as if he was pushing as hard as he could possibly push. And then the problem with that is when you go over the limit of what the car is capable of, well, that is what you get. An excellent save, a bobble, and an excellent recovery, but it will cost Cody Pride a position. Steele Vason up to the 4th place position in the 962. And now Pride has Barrier all the way back on him. And look at this. Look at this. Off again. Very strange things indeed happening to the number 1, as a few more positions lost as Barrier and now Karsten go through. Karsten up to 6, Barrier into the top 5. What is going on with Cody Pride?
Cody Pride seems to be, that car doesn't seem to be quite comfortable. Maybe it's pressure related in the tires, or maybe there is damage on that car that we're just not aware of. James Parker is going to take advantage of the struggling McLaren, and he's going to have 7th place. He's going to say, thank you very much. That'll help me in my efforts to defend my championship lead. That's another position that I have. But James Parker, you've got a long way to go if you're going to prevent George Boothby from taking the lead of the championship. After the 2 races here tonight, George Boothby does still lead at this point in time. Grant Willamot and Fabian Piffet fighting for 9th place right now. Karsten still recovering. He's in 6th at this point in time. Obviously gained a place from Cody Pride. Struggling in that McLaren. And it just seems now like George Boothby has got into a bit of a rhythm. He started to gap Darren King, who has started to gap Jardier as well. The top 3 starting to spread themselves out a bit. Some social distancing going on track. No social distancing going on between these 2 there.
No, indeed, as the fight for the top 10, or the 9th place position, we should say, is very well and truly on. Piffet, the 195, trying to get by Wilmot in the Bentley. We didn't mention this at the start of the show, but first of all, kudos to our broadcaster, Stewie, tonight, who came in on short notice to do the Friday championship for us all, and giving us the fantastic angles, including this splitter cam This is the splitter of the 195 Lexus of Piffet, looking at the back rear diffuser of Willamette, just showing you how close they get in these corners and how much Piffet is closing up in the Lexus on the Bentley. But just 15 minutes to play here.
Oh, and Alexander
10:23
Karsten.
p.m. Oh, Karsten trying to go around.
Comes.
Valentin Berrier trying to recover for a second time in this race. Not going to have the favored position here. Going to have to fall in line. Look behind him. That's James Parker. James Parker looking hungry like the wolf, Duran style. Very nearly gets in there for 6th.
James Parker won't mind this at all. He'll be looking up ahead saying, look, I don't mind if you guys take each other out. I'm going to go on 3. That'll suit me perfectly fine. Maybe doesn't quite have the pace to compete with these guys at this stage right now. Ooh, Karsten. Maybe going for some alternative lines here. Of course, the problem that he has is the Ferrari is very, very good around here, just like his Bentley. But Valentin Berrier not budging at this point in time. Gave him room at the hairpin, but just managed to hold the position and kind of forced him to worry about James Parker behind. But Karsten, he's going to keep going. He's going to try and recover, like you said, Jesse, for the second time this race. And with 14 minutes to go, looking at things realistically, if he can get past Berrier, he probably has the pace to catch Steelvason and get past him before the end of the race. Maybe a podium is just a bit too far out of reach, but you never know. If he's got the pace and mistakes that happen, Alexander Karsten could find himself still on the podium, despite the errors he's made today.
Well, Jardier, who is currently in the 3rd place position, who was losing time to Darren King, has actually now started to reel him in a bit. He's made up a 10th or 2. He's going to have to get a move on if he wants to actually catch King for the 2nd place. Keep in mind, Jardier is 3rd place in the championship and 3rd place on the track. This is a big race for him. And if James Parker stays in the 7th place position, that's just more points indeed. Of course, Jardier just made up another about a 10th there, actually. Made up about a 10th. And Alexander Karsten has been given a 5-second penalty for his role in the Jardier incident for turning him. 5 seconds deemed because he did turn him, but he gave the position back. So that turned a 15-second penalty into a 5-second penalty. So now Alexander Karsten needs to get 5 seconds in front of whomever he's racing to make sure he secures that position.
Yeah, and a clarification on that 5-second penalty as well. That penalty will primarily be due to the time that Jardier lost and the damage caused to that Mercedes. Obviously, Jardier did lose a bit of time. It allowed the drivers to close the gap to him a bit. Obviously, that gap has stretched out a bit now, but that Mercedes was definitely damaged in the process. So that's what the 5-second penalty will be for. Like Jesse said, could have been much more severe, probably looking at a 15-second penalty if the position wasn't given back. Valentin Berrier still defending as much as he can against the likes of Alexander Karsten. Like we said, Berrier's only had one good race this season. Karsten had a look, didn't quite go for the dive, and I have to say, if I was Valentin Berrier at this point, I think I would have had to go through 3 pairs of underwear.
I do apologize for grabbing onto you, Ryan Gill, being socially distanced and all that, but I thought for a second there that Valentin Berrier was going to have yet another nightmare in the GT3 World Championship, but turns out that was not the case. Alexander Karsten got the Bentley slowed up just in time, and enough room was given that did not come off or happen. A bit of a conga line forming behind Karsten as James Parker is now under threat of Cody Pride. Remember, Cody Pride had that one really bad lap. They gave up about 4 to 5 positions in a single lap, and they are all the way back to 8th place, but here they still are, and here is the battle they're in. This is Willamette behind Pride, and Piffet still behind Willamette. That pass hasn't happened either, as you see Piffet trying to get everything he can off the corners. The urgency setting in, Ryan. It's getting late in the race. Your opportunities are ticking away, and you just try to get as much as you can. But you got to be careful, because if you get too much, you will give yourself a very deadly penalty.
Yeah, the stewards, they've seen this all before. They know the verdict, and, well, the drivers, they know the verdict as well. They saw Kyle Army had some pretty harsh penalties coming out, and Bathurst was very much the same. Nobody wants to pick up a penalty, of course, but sometimes incidents do happen. Car 88, Clements, drive-through penalty for track limits is somewhat of an issue around here. Some people extending the track a bit too much. I've seen 2 cars do that so far today, and those drive-through penalties from ACC handed out accordingly. This is a replay with Fabien Piffet. We're looking at Willamette just ahead, and that's Cody Pride behind, who has lost 2 more places. But, well, Cody Pride's day going from bad to worse. I mean, it's similar to Karsten's day in a sense, but for Cody Pride, it's not getting any better. And speaking of it not getting any better, he's lost another place. He's losing more places. He's off the track. And
There
Cody
has to be
Pride,
something wrong with that car.
He's
there absolutely
dropping so many places, and he's tucked in now, I think, behind Svenchek, who has a 5-second penalty. Cody Pride down to 17th.
He did that deliberate, Ryan. He was on the front straightaway. He was out of the groove, and he was slow on purpose. So either he is dealing with something mechanical in his cockpit, or something is going very, very wrong in his world, because he is very slow. He's giving up these positions quite on purpose. I thought coming into the final corner earlier, when we saw him give up 2 spots, I thought that was a bit weird, because that looked a bit planned, and he just did the same thing on the front straightaway, and then he immediately picked up speed whenever everybody got by him. So something very off with the number 1 McLaren. And also the 107, Svenchek, also got a penalty, that 5-second penalty, due to an incident with Fabien Piffet in the 195 near the start of the race. 5-second penalty for the 107 for avoidable contact was given, and that covers you on penalties as well. But very strange. Would love to hear from Cody what exactly is going on with that McLaren, because I thought it may have been a puncture or pressure loss or something like that, but nah, there's something else going on.
Yeah, Cody Pride dealing with some sort of issue. We'll hope to potentially find out more. May be able to find out something in the intermediate session between race 1 and qualifying 2 rather. Well, we'll await to see what we can find out. Multiple battles on track at this point in time. We've got James Parker chasing down Karsten, who's chasing down Barrier. And at the same time, Steele Vason chasing down Jardier for 3rd place. Means that we've got multiple battles going around on the circuit. There's, of course, also the battle between Willamette and Piffet for 9th, or rather 8th place at the moment on track. So battles all around. Clements is back into the pit lane. So that drive-through
Oh no, it's happened again!
Contact. And this time it's both of them that go round. Barrier has been spun. He's lost positions. Karsten has lost positions again. Oh, and Jesse, I hate to say it, but that's probably going to be another 5-second penalty.
Ryan, I was just thinking that I reckon that 5 is going to turn into a 10 here in about, I'd say about 2 minutes time. That looked clear cut to me, and just another move that didn't come off of maybe a bit eager as passing happened here to Vrayan, very much trying to stay in front, or very much trying to challenge Keeble in the 47. That's going to go the wayside as Felipe Samard, that's Froschel. In fact, Froschel trying to get a position, the ultimate opportunity here to get a free position. Not going to happen. Going to get over the big humps and may even lose out a position to Samard. Felipe Samard, we haven't talked about him at all in this race today. He's been off doing his own thing. And Mr. Consistency, as he's becoming known as, he may get a position here. They're still going to be side by side for 2 to 3 turns. And finally, they're going to go back single file. But Soldatov looking to the inside, going to have an opportunity of his own. It's going to be Aston versus Aston. Oh, it could potentially be 3 wide. As Froschel goes off in front. Oh, Froschel is going to have a contact with Svenchek. Not Svenchek. He's going to have a contact with Soldatov. And that is going to come come to tears and blows at the end of the first sector. That's definitely, you could almost feel like that was coming. They were all bunched up, and you could almost feel like that was exactly what was going to happen.
Well, more stewards work to be done in the final few minutes of the race. Tavrayan has been handed a 5-second penalty as well to add to his race troubles. That was for contact with car 64 earlier on in the race. Looking down the grid, that was Soldatov. So Tavrayan at one point had contact with Soldatov. Soldatov was taken out as well by Svenchek, I think, who lost it on the very first lap.
Oh, yep,
This is the incident I was talking about. There you go.
That was so very strange.
Just completely losing it on his
Is
own.
Is that locking up your brakes, Ryan? Because that's the only thing I can think of.
I mean, definitely possibility. We don't entirely know everything that happens in these cars, but obviously when you push them to their limits, when you start doing things that these cars aren't meant to do, things like that are going to happen. Lose control of the car, and obviously it's your responsibility to maintain control of your car as well. And Soldatov just unfortunately caught up in that. Meanwhile, Jaroslav Honzik has company with Milton Steele-Vason. He'd much like to find his Aston Martin on the bottom step of the podium at this point in time. George Boothby and Darren King way too far up the road. But Jaroslav Honzik well and truly in his sights. Jardier, he'll want to hold on to this third position. Will improve his chances in the championship. It will allow him to close up on James Parker. And James Parker, by the way, up into 5th place, hasn't really made many overtakes in this race. He's kind of just been seeing people, you know, go off track and move out of his way, which I suppose as a racing driver, there isn't much, you know, much more that can satisfy you than just seeing people remove themselves from your general vicinity.
One of my favorite things in sim racing, Ryan, is to go into a pub lobby, start dead last, and see how far up the field I can get, sort of halfway on skill and sort of halfway on just having consistency and avoiding the incidents. It's part of the draw for it for me. Just to have a fun little pub race, and to have it happen in a championship, well, as we say in America, well, that's just gravy. Well, we are watching this battle between Jardier and Steele-Vason. Jardier, who is still continuing to close down on Darren King, though not quickly enough, has found himself being caught by Milton Steele-Vason for the 3rd place position. Jardier not going full defensive yet, but not exactly opening the door for Steele-Vason at this time, as there will have about 2 laps to go, 2 laps to hang on for Jardier in the final podium position, as we were fairly right on the money. Ryan, that 5-second penalty of Karsten is now a 10-second penalty following the most recent contact in half spin with Valentin Beria. So what happens here? Steele-Vason doing a little drift champion, coming into the first hairpin rather.
Well,
very nearly loses it, but I'm going to give him a 10 for saving it, but I'm going to give him a 0 because he missed the clipping point.
I'm sure George Smith would like the drift that Aston Martin conducted in that situation. And speaking of George Smith, he's arrived in the UK, I've heard, safe and sound, in a quarantine hotel at this point in time. I think he was even doing some commentary from his quarantine hotel the other night. So we wish George all the best in the new venture that he's doing, coming over to the UK. I'll be hoping to meet up with him at some form of real world racing venue this year if possible, COVID pending. And Steele-Vason, he'll be hoping to get past Jaroslav Honzik in the this lap and possibly the next one before this race is over. Cody Pride back in the pit lane. He's parked that car for this race. We saw issues with Cody Pride earlier on. Hopefully we'll get down to the bottom of that, but really, really unfortunate to see. You know, I mean, he had such a great race at Silverstone, and now quite a turn of emotions. But it does happen in racing, and it happens in sim racing as well. One race can be fantastic, the next can be an absolute disaster. But for Milton Steele-Vason at this point in time, the race is going pretty good.
It sure is, and the leader has taken the white flag, the 666 Ferrari for George Boothby, who is looking to retake the championship lead. It was a very good start, and after an early challenge from Darren King, well, that gap has expanded past 9 seconds now. No pressure for the leader on the final lap. That cannot be said for this man. Jaroslav Hanzik is in the defensive zone, as I would refer, with Steele-Vason. He has to make sure that he spots his car perfectly for this lap to secure that position. Steele-Vason very much within striking distance of third place. And for Cody Pride, well, Pride had the pace, didn't he? Just something amiss, something going wrong with his McLaren, undoubtedly so, and that has led to, well, him completely retiring from the race. The garage door is down, so I would love desperately to know what did happen. Jardy, of course, is continuing to catch Darren King, but too little too late. The battle that he should be focusing on is the one in his rear view mirror. Just a few turns left to secure third place.
Well, George Boothby, he's made it look easy out in front, had to weather the storm, but he will come across. He will win the first race of the evening here tonight, and he will retake the lead of the championship. Darren King will come home second. Jardier will fend off Steele-Vason for third place in the first race. James Parker, he'll come home in fifth. Grant Willamot will hold off Piffett for seventh. Barrier in 8th place. Karsten crosses the line in 9th. And Chevrayan, well, he's going to finish in 10th place. Penalty pending. Keeble just got a drive-through penalty, I understand, as well. I'm not entirely sure if that's steward enforced or if that's track limits. I suppose we'll have to find out later on, but late penalties all around for some of these guys here. Some of them steward enforced, some of them not so much. Frischel, Keeble, Schwenchek, Samard, Soldatov, Bouquet, and Clements, with Van Aken 18th and Belhassain 19th, and Cody Pride seems to be the only retirement of the race.
Oh, Frischel got a 15-second penalty for an incident right as they came to the line, and that dropped him down the order. That drive-through that you mentioned did, in fact, look to be, for Keeble, a track limits. So that's a Assetto Corsa penalty that he received. So that converted into a 30-second penalty, dropped him down to 17th. For James Parker, it was pretty much best case scenario. Started 9th, ended up finishing inside the top 5. Would like to have obviously fought for the win, but not to be. And for George Boothby, that was 100% what you need to do. And I think that is enough, and it should be enough, to give the championship lead back to George Boothby. Now, again, another lead change in this championship, right?
Yep, it will be. Another switch in the championship. George Boothby will reclaim the lead. And of course, he'll be hoping to do a double here tonight to not only reclaim the lead, but extend what lead he has gained. Of course, James Parker finishing in 5th place meant that the lead is probably not as big as it otherwise would be. We have a small interval session here, 5-minute break for all of these guys to reset.
Do you want to take like a track tour? I think is what
we could take a track tour.
I think, you know what I think it's time. I think it's time for Jesse's segment called "Why Did They Render That?" Stewie, take it away.
So we're going to go on a little bit of an adventure here. Whilst that's happening, by the way, I will...
Why did they render that? Why did they render that? Why is that in Ultra
Well.
HD?
Can we just get out of the way that we're clearly violating that rule right now? So we're probably going to get in
Stewie,
trouble post race.
you all can't hear it, but Stewie wanted to show us that sign simply because he thought that was very funny because he is filming, and that's quite ironic indeed. Now let's look at the air conditioning units. Hello, gentlemen. Let's look at the air conditioning units up here. They look like
That
they're
man's
made out of.
enjoying himself. Look at the smile on that man's face.
Oh
He's
my!
having a great time.
Well, he's standing in front of the air conditioner, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean it's lovely out here at this point in time. That you can see out at the Misano circuit. And we have the little bridge here that goes across the circuit.
Oh, look at this! Look at this!
It's one of these Silverstone. It's not this pretty though. And oh, look at this! It has different
steps.
drop-off segments. This is into the interior part of Sector 1, and of course, oh, lovely sun shots coming through here as well.
This is what Stewie does better than anybody else. I feel like he gets the see, they don't want you coming in here, so they have the tire over the gate. They don't want you in here. It's by appointment. Now this man, sir, why are you hanging out? Now that's a bit strange. I don't know why you would want to hang out in the middle of that. Now we're on the infield here. There's a little dirt track here in the infield. Yes, indeed. I believe this is a dirt go-kart track or a rallycross track, something of that nature.
Looks like a rallycross track to me.
It's very nice indeed. And once again, hashtag why did they render that? Now look at this soccer pitch here, or football pitch, depending on where you are on the world. Play a little FIFA in our ACC.
It's athletics course, and of course we've got the houses over here as well. And can I just say, as someone who's lived in a should we say Mediterranean country or coastline before, I have to say I do miss these houses. The houses out in the Mediterranean or the Latin countries rather.
Now wait a minute.
Nicer than they are in the UK.
Now wait a minute. Look at this real quick. This is a sort of graffiti art style sort of plinth. I think we'll call it a plinth. Now why did you render that, ACC? Kudos. Why did you put time into making that? Is very beautiful indeed. Adds to the atmosphere of the racing circuit, and you're not missing anything on track. This is the interim cool down between qualifying. Now this as well, this is excellently rendered and well done with textures that are legible. You got super there if you want to put super in the tank, and super plus indeed.
Could we have a little bit of a look at the Marco Simoncelli tribute that's on the track? I think it's down towards the hairpin in the second sector. There's also this sign here, and you can see Marco Simoncelli's name is all over this.
Oh, now that's lovely.
And of course, to those of you that might not know,
why? There's no way you can see this anywhere else. I'm not offended. I am just gobsmacked at how well Kunos does things with their. See, this is the level of simulation that you get.
It's right,
you get
here on the left, Sui. You can see it right on the. No, that's the right. That's on the left. If you go left, the corner behind us, like this one. Yeah, here we go. So Misano circuit, and it says SIC 58, I believe it is, on the outside. There you go.
Oh yes, there it is indeed.
But that's one of the tributes that you'll see all around this circuit, dedicated to Marco Simoncelli. If you don't know who Marco Simoncelli was, he was a MotoGP rider, Italian / San Marino MotoGP rider.
That's our production truck. That is.
But he was a MotoGP rider who unfortunately lost his life in an accident in Malaysia, and he was very much loved.
Hello, lads.
In the Italian MotoGP community. So very nice dedication here. But qualifying has started for the second race, and well, here we are. We're back. You haven't missed anything.
That, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of Why Did They Render That Misano edition. Thank you, Stewie, very much for doing the cameras. And he loves that segment. I love that segment, and it shows you the craftsmanship that goes in to Kunos making a racing circuit. The stuff that you couldn't even possibly see is not only rendered but textured appropriately and accurately, And very, very well done, Ryan, taking you through the tribute to well, MotoGP rider who, well, it's a job, Ryan, that you couldn't pay me to do MotoGP. Too dangerous. I prefer a roll cage.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, isn't it, where a lot of the time it doesn't matter if it's car racing or motorcycle racing. Some people do forget that as much as it's a job for some people, it's a very dangerous job, and you can never ignore those dangers, no matter how well the safety has improved over the last few decades. There's always more that can be done. And of course, well, Romain Grosjean's crash in Formula One was a very big lesson, I think, for a lot of people, that you can never take anything for granted in motorsport. And Anton Hubert's unfortunate accident at Spa was another very grim reminder that, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, what category you're in. This is dangerous, and of course, you know, it's always going to be that way. It's never going to be safe as per such. And as much as these guys in the GT3 cars, they're a bit more safe than, you know, a MotoGP rider is. But they still face dangers nonetheless. Fortunately, here in sim racing, I think the most dangerous thing that can happen to you is losing consciousness at the wheel. But we'll leave that story for another day, as Milton Steele-Vaessen is on the first qualifying lap of the second qualifying session of the day. Is Aston Martin going around on the back set of straights at this point in time. I hate to call this a back straight because it's very much not straight.
It's very much not, yeah.
But looking good so far. Coming into the hairpin, ooh, a bit wide there from Steele-Vaessen. Not going to invalidate his lap though. He'll come up towards the final couple of corners now. And he will be the first driver to set down a lap time in the second qualifying session, preparing for the second 30-minute race here tonight. So Steele-Vaessen keeps it on the track, up towards the line. It's a 1:33.9. And judging by what we've seen earlier today, Jesse, that's going to be nowhere near good enough to be at the front of the grid.
Couldn't have said it better myself, and in fact is immediately beaten by Karsten. Karsten has work to do to rebuild self-confidence and actually, dare I say, trust with some of the drivers, as Boothby throws down the first really quick lap, a 33.051. But you and I both know that that is still about 3/10 off of where we know he could be. And, well, can the Sidemax Motorworks driver go quicker than that? Can he get into the 32.6s or 5s maybe?
Well, someone that's definitely going to be chasing him down in the second qualifying session was the man that kind of put George Boothby in a bit of a worrying state towards the end of the first qualifying session. Karsten provisionally on the front row of the grid as well, 3/10 off Boothby's lap time. But we know that Alexander Karsten has the pace to pretty much match whatever George Boothby can do in that Ferrari. Just needs to hook it all up together. Here is Milton Steele-Vaessen. Of course, he set the first lap of the session, but nowhere near enough to challenge for the front of the grid. You can see that by being almost 9/10 of a second off where he needs to be. He's just over 6/10 of a second up at this point in time through the final corner up towards the timing line. 6.5 up. This is going to be much, much better from Steele-Vaessen up towards the front and puts himself provisional second at this point in time. But here comes Karsten. He's up on his lap time as well. He's going to cross the line. He goes provisional. Oh! George Boothby comes across the line and he hits it straight back.
Excellent stuff here in qualifying. Very short format. You have to get it right. And these two, Boothby and Karsten, doing battle amongst themselves, and everybody else fighting for their own position as Barry goes third quickest, 33.165. That's still some 3/10 off of the pole, as we're going to have to pay attention very closely to see. Boothby, I don't think he's safe at a 32.865, and I think Karsten can beat that mark.
Definitely so. As we await to see what can happen. It's so close between these two, but Karsten is up on his lap time again. Comes onto the back sequence of straights, and George Boothby is behind Karsten on track. So whatever Karsten does in crossing the line, George Boothby immediately has the chance to take it back, just like he did. Oh, that was James Parker! That was James Parker right in the way of Alexander Karsten. Karsten was 3/10 up on his lap time. James Parker obviously trying to move out of the way of some of the guys that were on quick laps, but just wrong place, wrong time, and that's Karsten off into the gravel.
Oh dear.
And
I
kinda
don't think there's
get the
fault
feeling-
that you can apply there, Ryan, but that's just a bad situation in a bad place. But that is not. Oh, Carson's reset to pit road. I don't know.
he's
what's
not
your
going to be
take?
happy. He's not going to be happy, especially considering he was 3.5 tenths up, and George Boothby is now 3 tenths ahead for provisional pole. In theory, if Karsten could have held that time, he would have taken provisional pole. So,
Well,
he's not going to be happy about that.
Well, George Boothby improves to a 32.643, further setting the mark. And Karsten has come out of pit road. This is his warm-up lap, the 2 SRL Esports Bentley, trying to kind of get your mind back in the right place and try and set a quick lap. He's only going to get one opportunity to set that lap now, and I know Carson's going to be upset at King there a little bit, but honestly, there's not a whole lot you could have done though. I mean, it's a bad first corner in general, and it's a bad place to catch somebody. And oh dear, we don't often do replays in qualifying simply because it's mostly single car runs. But as far as one that we had, I'm glad Stewie had that one because that was.
Well, Joe
boy.
Joe McCauley's in the chat, and he's asking for James to be banned. So it's good to know that the banter is out between the Coach Dave Academy teammates, and Joe McCauley always here to support a teammate. But yeah, Alexander Karsten, he'll have to go again, and he'll only get one shot at it. So if it's going to come in clutch, it has to come in clutch now. We watch Fabian Piffett, who, by the way, Fabian Piffett's put that Lexus into third provisionally on the grid. What's that car doing up there?
I don't know, but it did look fast in race 1. It's just the qualifying that let Piffett down for Team Fordzilla. But right now, looking like they could be a team that could potentially make a run at a podium place here. Now, Cody Pride's back. Cody Pride, who left the previous race, is back. I now understand, as they're going to come to the line here, we'll see they're 11th now. What do they improve to? They improve to 5th place there. Well, Karsten is back in pit road, and that is because Karsten has invalidated his lap. So Karsten will take no further part in this Q session. Now, what's Darren King doing down in 14th place? Didn't he just finish in 2nd place? I assume for the docking community team, King is going to improve greatly from 14th as he comes to the line. He will get an additional lap and only goes to 11th on the grid at a 33.408. Now, that would have been a top 5 time in last qualifying session, but is not even in the top 10 this time by. And just update you on Cody Pride. Cody Pride is back on the track. Several people in chat letting us know that they were having FPS performance issues previously. And in fact, I do recall Cody Pride in pit lane before the race 1 talking about having massive frame issues. And hopefully they have fixed that. Now, Jardier goes from 8th to 5th with a 33.102. Times are coming down here, Ryan.
Yeah, they are. And, for the man that led the championship coming into this race, James Parker, his qualifying hasn't gone well either. 12th place for him. He'll be sharing the row alongside Darren King, who also hasn't been able to improve any. Here comes Grant Willamot over the line. He will improve up to 11th, in fact, so that's going to bump both Darren King and James Parker down 1 as well, and Bouquet crosses the line. Not sure if there was an improvement there. He's going to go and hit the marshal post, make sure that the marshals have some work to do. Herbert Frischel He's going to come through the final corner, and this should be the final lap of the qualifying session. The Honda sits 16th. Can he improve? No.
Ryan. Yes. So, what happened with the James Parker incident that made Karsten basically crash off the track? Parker says that his timing and scoring said that he was nowhere near anybody else. That's why he was dawdling on the track, and that he thought he had room. And then all of a sudden, it snapped back to reality, and then gravity came in, and it all went a bit haywire. I certainly believe him, Ryan, because I've certainly had that happen to myself. Now that is an ear of a driver in a helmet. Why is now for the next round of why did they render that? Why is the driver's ear rendered in the helmet when you cannot possibly see it? Now that is a normal, healthy ear.
See the back of the
Now,
seat as well.
now this is just ridiculous. It has an actual serial number, a rego, and everything on that. Now that is insane. And we're gonna get into the mind of the driver real quick. Now
This is George Boothby at home for everyone who isn't entirely aware.
That is what a racing driver looks like. I mean, well, racing drivers look like all sorts of things, but they showed this when ACC was first being teased about the level of detail, and I definitely remember going, "Oh, it'll probably not look like that," when it came out. But do you know what, folks? I was wrong as per usual, and everything in here is just absolutely immaculate. And half of this stuff you cannot even see as we're
We should
taking a
probably
look at.
not push that red button either.
If we push that button, George Boothby is going to storm over to our van and kick us out of our van and race our van, which I would quite love to see. But he has a championship to deal with. As we took a look at the fire extinguishing devices, and now all the relays and such.
The pedals.
Stewie's talking about George Boothby's magic feet. Well, we've officially shown feet on this channel, which is, something, I guess, if you're into that.
I love the little camera on the back of the 488. I do love the GT3 cars that have cameras in them. To me, it's such a step forward than just having a mirror on the back.
We're gonna play a
car.
game. Can Stewie find it?
I don't believe it's visible on the car. I do not believe it is a visible asset on the car. I could be wrong in all of that. We get a lovely picture of the Ferrari logo, the prancing horse.
Prancing horse, very well indeed. And look at this. This is you never want to see the engine. You never want to see it normally. That means that your engine cover has come off, but we can go inside there, take a look.
Just a comment on the original, lovely shot in the mirror there. Just a comment on the original thing you said, Jesse, about the timings with James Parker. I mean, we experience issues with our timing screens.
Indeed.
Here in the commentary box a lot of the time. I mean, I can remember multiple points in qualifying in which our timing board has said, "Oh, someone's half a second up on a lap," and it turns out they're actually not. So, I mean, things can happen. At the end of the day, things can always happen. James Parker obviously probably didn't mean it. I'm willing to believe that it was an accident.
I'm willing to believe that, he even apologized. And now look at the LEDs. Look at that. Look at how nice that is.
It's a fantastic. Hang on. Does Jardier's Mercedes have the one sticking up on the roof? No. Oh, it does.
It does indeed.
It's got the lightsaber.
I'm actually curious. Can you go up the tailpipe of one of these cars? Is that a possibility? You're gonna have to find one with the yes. No, I don't think you can. Find a Mercedes and try to do that. That's a side pipe on the Mercedes. I'm very curious. Yes, very much so. Now let's see. Is there anything in there? Yes, in fact, there is. Are you kidding me?
Jesse Lee not expecting to find the internals of an exhaust in here.
I just sim racing's great, isn't it? We have all of this technology, and we're actually rendering 3D objects now. Uh, uh,
This is the Honda, the evil smile, as our broadcaster has just called it. And I have to say, it's really nice to see the NSX being a bit more represented on the grid lately. It's a car we definitely need to see more of, and hopefully a car that we will see more of in the upcoming 12 hours of Bathurst. And we'll also be seeing hopefully some more Nissans on the grid for the 12 hours of Bathurst. That race, of course, Jardier and Jimmy Broadbent, they came to us and they were like, "Hey guys, we want to host another Bathurst race." And Mike Jones and I were like, "Sure, why not?" So another 12 hours of Bathurst coming up as George Biffbeat leads everyone away for the formation lap for the second time here tonight. And of course it will be Alexander Karsten alongside him on the front row of the grid as he was in the first race. And Karsten, he's going to be hoping that he has a much better race this time around.
Yeah, he sure is. He didn't get off the line very good in race number 1. He spun, well, he spun, but also helped them recover several cars, got 2 5-second penalties, and finished well down the order. Not what he would have wanted, especially with a Bentley that had quite as much pace as his did. He definitely had the pace to compete inside the top 3, though he did not get to show it. So race number 2, very important that you understand what went wrong at the start of race number 1 and you correct those issues very sharpish. As still no weather on the track, looks like we're going to get away with it tonight, folks. It's going to be a little night racing in Italy, and it's going to be just about perfect conditions, albeit perhaps a little warmer than you would want for maximum speed, but that will be no big matter. And the other elephant in the room that we did not discuss so much yet is the legendary timing of Kunos to drop a BOP update for the cars before the weekend run.
Yep. Of course, the 3 hours of Donington taking place tomorrow, and some BOP updates coming out quite literally about 36 hours before the race is due to start. So a few drivers happy, a few drivers unhappy, understandably so. But you know what? BOP updates happen. And Kunos don't really schedule anything to do with any community events because it's obviously not really any of their business, is it? I mean, they'll drop a BOP update whenever the BOP update is ready, and if that's right before a race, that's right before a race. It's
their legendary timing, Kunos. That's what I call it their legendary timing.
You're gonna hurt someone no matter when you release it. So you might as well release it whenever you feel like it.
You're right. You're absolutely right, Ryan. There's leagues every day of the week. I mean, think about RCI, for instance. We have a league going every day, if not every day. I think the only day we don't actually have a league going is Sunday.
Tuesday as well.
Oh, that's right. We don't currently have a Tuesday race. Well, here we go for the start of race number 2. 20 cars, 10 rows deep, lining up on the front straight. Everybody trying to get into position. Don't want to get a drive-through penalty. They will be assessed individually by the stewards. The lights are on, the lights go out, and here we go. Race number 2 as George Boothby leads them down into turn 1, has the proper position, and going to try for Karsten to fall in line. He does indeed get in line this time as Piffet and Tavrayan are trying to sort it out behind them, and Jardier in there as well. He's going to have the inside to try and potentially take this position away, as Jardier is going to be the man that gets the 4th place position done. Very wide indeed, potentially inviting trouble from behind, but down and gone. Jardier up a position, Karsten solidly in 2nd place, Boothby clean start out in front, and Piffet following in line. Excellent start, way cleaner than the first one. No drive-throughs.
No drive-throughs indeed, but it's 3 wide in the background at some of these corners going through here. We're looking back at James Parker, who finished up in 5th place at the end of the first race. Didn't have a great qualifying. That's Willamot and Belhassain, and the Bentley's gone around.
Oh, it's a big mess.
And that's a couple of cars caught up in that as well. There's an Aston Martin towards the back. That might be Keeble, I think, the number 47. And Clements looks to have been caught up in that as well.
Big melee near the back of the field. And of course, with a track as narrow as you have here at Misano, that is inevitable. If you get turned around, there is almost nowhere to go. And the dark conditions as well, not playing well indeed. And an accident near the back, Clements, Willamette, Keeble, and perhaps, I think that is just about it for them as we end the very first lap. Boothby leads Karsten by half of a second. Piffet a further half a second back. Jardier the same thing in fourth place. Tavrayan has found the smallest of gaps, and we're going to take another look at this. This is Bellassane. So there was initial contact with Bellassane there, but that is not the incident where they got spun around, but that was the initial contact. This is what happened after that. We're going to run down to the corner, going to miss the corner a little bit, and then Bellassane gets in there, spun around, makes contact with several cars, gets spun back into traffic. Willamette makes contact, and Keeble does as well, and that, well, that's a strike, I think.
Yeah, not great for Willamette, and not great for the likes of Keeble either. Just an innocent bystander in all of that and caught up. Meanwhile, at the front, Karsten, he's had a really good start this time around. Hasn't lost any places on the start. More importantly, finds himself just within half a second of George Boothby. But now, the Bentley, now that he's got himself right on the back of George Boothby, doesn't have to worry about the cars behind him immediately. Can he show the pace he had in race one? Can he take it to George Boothby in this race? Can we possibly see a Bentley on the top step of the podium in 27 minutes time?
Well, I think it's absolutely possible as Valentin Berria nearly going for a spin there. Bouquet going down the inside to do avoiding action, going to be 3 wide, as I believe, was that Darren King? Indeed it was. Darren King gets a 2-for-1 special and ends up getting the 7th position, excuse me, is that the 6th position? I think indeed, yes, the 6th position for Darren King. 2-for-1 going 3 wide on the front straight, and I thought Valentin Berria was going to spin off the nose of Albin Bouquet, but both drivers are able to gather it up. The big winner there, Darren King. Darren King started outside the he started outside the top 10. He's already up there.
6th. Unbelievable start from Darren King. Not quite the same start for some of the other guys out here. James Parker qualified 13th. He's only up to 11th, but it's still 2 places gained for the man who's second in the championship, Valentin Berria. He finished 8th in the first race. He's currently 8th. Here's Cody Pride, who unfortunately had to retire in the first race, hoping to do much better at this point in time, hoping to have fixed those PC performance issues that he hinted on to earlier in the race, and defending from Bel Hussein as well. And Svenchek's Bentley this time, not going flying off on the first lap. He's kept that in touch, and he sits 12th place at the moment, looking at the rear end of James Parker's Aston Martin.
Well, you got to wonder if there will be a penalty. I assume as much there will be at some point. In fact, if I look over at the steward's booth, they are signing some papers. And folks, if you've never been involved in stewarding, as a big jump from James Parker there over the curb, that did his lap time no favors, but no change in position, as Svenchek behind him was not close enough to make the move. But as you may not or may know, if the stewards are signing papers, that's not good. That means that they have done somebody for a penalty.
Yeah, we're quite used to getting pieces of paper handed to us with signatures on them, official confirmation of penalties and such. Obviously, we want to see as few signed off papers as possible, and the stewards, well, they quite enjoyed a quiet evening at Silverstone, didn't they? Not so much here at Misano, but I think the previous race was, well, definitely quieter than Kyalami and Snetterton were, so they can probably consider themselves grateful for that. James Parker, meanwhile, still holds himself in 11th place. 6 minutes into the race, and he's got to try and make up as much ground as possible, or well, this result could really hurt his championship efforts.
It very much could be. James Parker needs to get a move on. He has gained a few positions at the sort of benefit of himself at the detriment of everybody else having comings together early in the race. John Clements trying to get by Van Ack here. Very close here. Could have a run, but will not have a run. Goes over the curbs. And that is, I don't know how they managed to, actually I do know how they managed to hang on to it quite so well. They're pro drivers. This is the pro split, of course, not the only split going on, but this is the top split, and that's how they are able to control their cars so fantastically. Boothby pulling away from Karsten out front, 3/4 of a second the gap, and more than a second back to third place Piffet. But Jardier, oh boy, Jardier is still within a second of Piffet for the final podium position.
Well, Piffet doing much better than he did in race 1, mostly down to the better qualifying in the second session of the evening. And Cody Pride acting as a bit of a gatekeeper at this point in time by the looks of it. Bel Hussein finding himself right up behind the McLaren, and then of course James Parker, Svenchek and Steele Vason all behind Soldatov as well.
Oh,
and there goes
goodness!
Cody Pride. Just got out of touch, and that's going to allow Bel Hussein to slip on through, doesn't lose multiple places.
I gotta see this. Look at this man.
That was well saved. That was very, very well done. I don't think you or I would have saved that.
No, we wouldn't, and that is not Hazem Bellassane. That was Cody Pride, and Cody Pride going for another one. That car looks evil. I wonder if he's still dealing with issues. It's going to come to blows with the 107 to Svenchek. Svenchek getting completely wiped out there on the apex of the corner. The replay will confirm. Cody Pride not fully in control of the vehicle, causing an incident, and is that Clements behind for contact? I think it might have been.
Oh dear, the day gets worse for Cody Pride. It was looking like he could finally challenge for something of a decent result, but then just getting all out of shape with that car again. And I wonder if that's got to be PC issues again. Maybe just frame drops, struggling to get to grips with the car as well, could be a factor. And, well, Cody Pride, he's going to be investigated now by the stewards. Meanwhile, Karsten out, chasing down Boothby. The gap still maintaining itself at around about just over half a second at this point in time. And, I mean, a second place would still be a fantastic result for Karsten, let's not forget. And here is Clements.
Is Clements mad, do you think? Oh, okay.
Probably, but Cody Pride has lost it again at the same part of the track. And that McLaren
looks evil.
It's having the same issues that he encountered in the first race. You saw it there, just twitch again. So unnatural to twitch there. And yeah, he's letting these guys through again. And I think for Cody Pride, I feel for him because he's now finding himself down at the back of the grid, and I kind of get the feeling that I know how it's going to go from here.
Yeah, it looks like the same issues Cody Pride had in race number 1 have reared their ugly head here. Was complaining about poor performance, not in his race car, but of his sim rig. And who was that backwards? Was that for Shell? I think that might have been the lone Honda, and can confirm the 86, Herbert Frechel. What happens to him? Oh, somebody goes around the outside. Svenchek, and, well, Svenchek gives him a hip check, and the 86 stationary on the inside of the double apex. And that will no doubt lead to adjudication.
Yeah, Stuart's going to be looking at that one as well. And Darren King, he's having a look at 5th place at this point in time. Started 12th up to 6th. Is it about to be 5th? Yes, it is. Darren King for the
defensive
team puts himself up into 5th place. What a fantastic start it's been in the first 11 minutes of this race for Darren King. Up into the top 5. Finished 2nd in race 1. didn't have a great qualifying in the second qualifying session of the day, but he's pretty much made up for that. And, well, 2.9 seconds up the road is Jaroslav Honzik. He's got 19 minutes. Probably has the pace as well to catch up to Jardier. Meanwhile, Karsten, the gap says 7/10 of a second. The gap that I can see on my screen looks a bit closer than that, and the timing board does update. It's just under half a second now, so Karsten seems to drop back a bit from George Boothby, but then regains that time as well, and I wonder if it's just going to be this tug of war for the rest of the race at this point in time. It's going to be who makes a mistake first.
Well, I certainly hope so, and you would assume after the flawless race that Boothby had, Karsten would be the #1 contender to make a mistake, but you know, you learn very quickly in sim racing from your mistakes, and Karsten has had a flawless start to the second race of tonight, and he has a lot to prove to himself that he can compete. And well, we thought that he may be a threat here. Didn't come to pass in race 1, but here it is. That is the gap. Excellent camera work by Stewie here, the wing of Boothby, looking back at the second place car of Karsten, and there is nothing in it between the two of them, as the Bentley hitting the curbs a bit more aggressively than George Boothby is for SideMax Motorworks right now. And this is the battle for first and second. No battle for third place. Piffet all on his own, starting to yard out Jardier. Got about 2/10 on him in the last couple of laps. So nothing going on there so much. Of course, we talked about Darren King being up to 5th. Let's all pay attention. 3 seconds the gap between King and Honzik for 4th place. Gonna have to pay attention to see if King can continue his miraculous run up through the field. Already a heroic effort to get up into the 5th place position, but the battle for the win well and truly on here, nearly halfway into the race.
Yeah, we've got Papa Boothby in the chat, as always, when George seems to be racing around here, and he said that George is pushing really hard at the moment, making a few errors. I've seen George Boothby push hard multiple times before and make errors because of that. Saw it in the British GT Championship, saw it in the Ferrari Evo Championship. Would not be surprised to see it here in the GT3 World Championship either. And the closer Karsten gets to the back of George Boothby, the harder that Boothby will push. And if it's going to be a case of mistakes, Karsten just needs to be patient. He needs to learn from the mistakes he had in race 1. He needs to not be too eager, not get impatient. Wait it out. You've still got over half the race to go at this point in time. And if it gets to the final 5 minutes of the race and George Boothby hasn't made a mistake that allows you to take the lead, then you can start getting a bit more aggressive. Then you can start pushing just that bit more. Here's a replay with Grant Willamot. Is this going to be... Oh, turns Bouquet around and gets clipped by the Aston as well. Willamot slowing down. I believe that's to give the place back. But that's not going to do him any favors with the stewards either.
Well, we haven't received any slips of paper in our booth yet, but we can assure you that they are coming. I can promise you that. They just haven't officially arrived yet. In a clean right-hand side of the timing board, meaning that nobody has officially received a penalty for anything that has occurred. But the stewards very much up to the task and very much in talks with some penalties that are currently under review. Meanwhile, out front, no penalties as such, but there are a lot of close racing in good proximity, and we were riding on board with Karsten there a lap ago, and just something I noticed is just how much closer to the inside of corners that Karsten is cutting. It's almost like Boothby is pacing himself a bit more, and of course that is a luxury you have being the leader, isn't it, that you can sort of set your own pace. And of course Karsten's looking for any sort of angle, any little clean little bit of air that he could possibly get to make that move. But Boothby doesn't have to do that. He just has to maintain position, and he's doing that well at the moment.
He is doing it well at the moment. He's got to do it for another 14 minutes at this point in time. And Karsten doing a very good job to remind him that he is there. Darren King, after moving up into 5th place, hasn't really closed down on Jardier at all. 2.9 seconds the gap. So it looks like Jardier running on equal pace to Darren King at this point in time. James Parker up into 10th, by the way. He's found himself just into the top 10. Vanek seems to have gone into the pit lane. I believe that might be a retirement for the number 122. Drive-through for Svenchek, that's for track limits, I've just been told. So the 107 Bentley, who I think is probably under investigation for a penalty already, has just kind of self-inflicted a track limits penalty on themselves. And we've seen a few of those come out tonight.
We sure have, and I think it's very important that you pay attention to the track limits. Keep in mind, you know, we're only, 17 minutes into the race, and to use up all 3 of your limits, of course, it is a small format, so you take more liberties with your driving, obviously, but that's incredible pace. That might be some of the quickest drive-through penalties for track limits that I've ever seen. 17 minutes. But Svenchek, like you said, also, we assume, we don't know this, but we assume under investigation for an incident prior. All the gaps just sort of hovering where they are. Darren King is catching Jardier. If he continues at the pace that he is currently on, he might actually catch Jardier, but
this
is Cody Pride, who...
That McLaren has seen better days, and that's just the end of whatever incident Cody Pride was involved in, whether that was self-inflicted.
So that was Cody Pride spinning by himself in the middle of a straightaway, and if that does not tell you, there's not a better way I can describe...
Karsten's off track! Alexander Karsten's off the track. We're going to get a replay here, courtesy of Stewie. Was this a dive? Oh, it was a dive!
It was indeed.
Just taps George Boothby, and the Bentley sends himself onto the grass. Self-inflicted incident there. There'll be no further action on that one. Oh, but Alexander Karsten again. Again, Jesse, just another self-inflicted incident when he was in a fantastic position for a really, really good result. And now, he's found himself outside the top 10. Well, the racing continues here at Misano. Just about under 11 minutes remaining here. Alexander Karsten challenging George Boothby for that first place, making a mistake, too late on the brakes, too impatient, sending himself into the grass, and unfortunately, not much he can do about it there. James Parker having a look on Bel Hussein, but going way too deep on the brakes, and the Aston Martin will have no luck there in getting around the Ferrari. James Parker is going to have to try that all over again. 10 minutes remain of the second race here this evening. And George Boothby now kind of looking like he doesn't have too much left to do. Just got a hot lap towards the end. Here we can see replay Alexander Karsten. Oh, just on the inside. Taps Boothby and sends himself into the grass. Self-inflicted there. Unfortunate for Alexander Karsten, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. George Boothby won't mind, as he's still up towards the front and still in the race. Here is Clements and Simard. Ooh, Simard just getting out of shape, and Clements taps the back of the Aston Martin, sends him around.
Oh dear.
And he's going to wait to give that place back by the looks of it, or has he? I'm not entirely sure there, but James Parker continues onwards, and no, I don't think Clements has given the position back there, so...
Ooh.
A few more investigations going on in race 2 than race 1, Jesse.
Yes, indeed. Well, I am starting to get slips of paper from Daniel. Of course, the 88 and the 122 racing incident on lap 6 was the first thing that they officially finished reviewing, and a warning for the 316 for lap 1 turn 10 incident with car number 8. And then another incident with car 316, 5-second penalty given to that car for the incidents. Also in that corner, that was the pileup that we saw that involved the 962 and the 47. So a 5-second penalty for the 316 and a warning for the number 8 is all that has been pushed my way. But judging by the look Daniel's giving me, we're going to get some more here in a moment.
Daniel, when he handed over that piece of paper, I kind of glanced at him, and he could kind of read my eyes. I was like, "Is that all of it?" And he looked back, and his eyes just said, "No, man, that's not all of it."
He said, "This is just a foreword we had written. This isn't even the novel yet."
Well, more chapters to be written in this race. 8 minutes to go, or just under. And still plenty that can change at this point in time. Valentin Barrier would hope that he can change his position at this point in time. He'll be hoping to go forwards rather than backwards. He's got Alban Bouquet just in front of him. And Valentin Barrier, who had a top 10 finish in the first race, going to be looking for another one of those in race 2 to add to his small collection of positive races this season in the GT3 World Championship. Hasn't had many. Here comes James Parker again. Looking on the outside of Bel Hussein. Tried to go for a switchback. Didn't quite work. Now, is he going to have a look on the inside? No, thinks better of it. Going to try for another switchback here, but no, the Ferrari just has much better traction out the corners, and there's going to be nothing doing that.
I know some of you at home are probably wondering, why would James Parker for Coach Dave Academy, why would he try to go around the outside? You know that you can't do that. Well, you'd think that, but if you knew James Parker, you'd know that it actually is possible. In fact, I've seen James Parker do things in a race car that you wouldn't assume are physically possible. I've certainly seen him do passes around the outside where he somehow pulled it off, to the amazement of me in the booth, but also the driver he was overtaking. I've heard some drivers in the past say that James Parker trying to overtake you is just unfair because you cover him up and he still gets around you somehow, and that's pretty much James in a nutshell. So going around the outside, not quite as strange for the driver of the 888 as it would be for some other drivers. But you see the damage on Bel Hussain's number 8 Ferrari from the very, very early incident on the front right there. Very unfortunate incident indeed, as some more penalties coming through here as we expected.
Looks Cody like Pride has a drive-through track limit, by the way. That one was given a couple of laps ago, so Cody Pride today getting, well, from it was already pretty bad, unfortunately, for Cody Pride, but just seeming to get a bit worse.
Well, it gets worse for Willamot, too. He's been given an additional 5-second penalty for his involvement in an incident with the 122 on the 9th lap, turn 2. 15-second penalty for the 107 for an incident with the 86 on lap 7. And a racing incident with the 122 car, and a warning for the car number 42 for an incident with the 86. So pretty much what I expect from Misano, all things considered, Ryan. I expect some really good close racing, but I also expect some contacts and some penalties to be given, and certainly we've seen that today.
So I'm just getting over Joe McCauley's comment in the chat. He's got a few choice words for you, Jesse Lee. I know there's some history between you and Joe McCauley in commentary. Didn't you call him a back marker at one point in time at Imola? And I don't think he's quite got over that. And well, I don't think he's too happy with some of the words you've used to describe James Parker today. And here is James Parker, by the way, still going for the move on Belhassain. He's going to try the inside line this time around. Is he going to get it to come off? Belhassain almost touches the back of the Aston Martin, but it looks like James Parker has got it done. He will have to defend, though, as Belhassain is going to look to try and take this position back. Not going to try flat out through the kinks. He's going to have a look back on the inside, though. Thinks better of it, backs out. James Parker will go wide, but Belhassain, he's going to tuck in behind, and he's going to continue on with his race.
Well, is that Joe McCauley making fun of me? I think it might be indeed.
It is indeed.
I'm not, well, here's the thing, Joe. Whenever you do something amazing on the track, which you frequently do, I like to talk about how amazing you are as well. But for whatever reason, you decided not to be in this race today, so I have to talk about James Parker instead. So, and very nearly rightly so, you almost saw the exact thing I was talking about with James Parker going around the outside. Very nearly came off in a double apex of all things. And this is Alexander Karsten after, oh dear, where do we go from here? It's just an evening that had so much promise.
Where do you
Karsten.
begin? Where do you begin to dissect what's gone wrong tonight? I mean,
oh dear.
I don't like to show bias towards drivers at all, negative or positive. But I mean, I think Alexander Karsten himself, he even said it at the end of race 1. He said, you know, it was a disaster. And this race hasn't been quite as bad. But I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be looking at this thinking, well, at least it was better than the first race.
Yeah, I don't know how much this saying translates, but it might be time to run the bath if you're Alexander Karsten, because you're gonna need it after a day like today. What's that old song? Mama said there'd be days like these, and it's just, you have all the opportunity in the world, and sometimes you just can't capitalize. It all goes wrong, and then you find yourself in a position like this. And unfortunately for him, pretty sure he's upset a few drivers in today's race as well, who will be less than enthused about some of his passing opportunities that went awry. George Boothby, of course, very nearly himself a victim, but got it going the right way. And of course, credit to Karsten too. There's no way he meant to do any of those. He was attempting to make a move. He wasn't quite there. It didn't come off. And in every single case, he gave the positions back. So that all said, was it a fair? Were they fair moves? No, but were they malicious in any way? Absolutely not.
No, it's Alexander Karsten. He definitely didn't mean any of the incidents he caused tonight. I mean, there's no doubt that he was responsible for the incidents he was involved in. He's even put his hand up and and blamed himself. And like you said, you're gonna have days like this, and you can't judge a driver on one race. I mean,
no.
if we were judging drivers on their worst races, you wouldn't have a lot of kind things to say about most of the drivers on the grid here tonight.
Yep.
There's very few drivers that have not had races like this at one point. I hate to say sim racing career, because for most of these guys it is just a hobby. But for most of their time racing in ACC, iRacing, R Factor, whatever they want to race in, one race does not define you as a driver. You can never judge someone off of one race. It might just be a bad day. And judging by what we've seen from Alexander Karsten this season, I'm willing to bet it is just a bad day from him tonight. Didn't mean it as well, has apologized for his incidents.
Indeed.
Clements has been disqualified for track limits abuse, by the way, by the server. So ACC has...
You don't see that every day.
ACC has had enough of the track limit warning violations for the number 88, and
I have never seen that.
I've seen it before, but like you said, you don't see it very often. But Clements won't be taking any further part in this race, and kind of unfortunate for him. He's relegated to the pit lane for the rest of this evening. Not that there's much left to go in this race. The timer has run out, and George Boothby,
here he is.
He's about to round the final corner. He'll make it 2 out of 2. 2 pole positions and 2 wins here tonight. George Boothby in fantastic style. Piffet will take second place in the Lexus result of the season for the 195, and Jaroslav Honzik finds his car on the podium again. Darren King will manage 4th place, Tavrayan 5th, Bouquet 6th, Barrier 7th, James Parker in 8th, Bel Hussein 9th, and Carsten does get his car back into the top 10 before the end. Stelvason and Soldatov in 11th and 12th. Soldatov should be getting demoted a few positions because of his penalties, so that means that Keeble, right behind him, should jump up. Here comes Samard as well, P14 for Shell, and Willamot for 15th and 16th. Schwenchek and Pride will be the last 2 cars to round out the race. Schwenchek with a 15-second time penalty, and Cody Pride finds himself 3 laps down at this point. It's been a horrible evening for him, and one that he'll be very, very keen to put behind him as quick as possible.
Well, George Boothby wins it here as Cody Pride will come across to finish the race. George Boothby wins in front of family. Papa Boothby should be filled with pride, and the frustration of Cody Pride there, I think, is very understandable. But here is the man, the myth, the legend, George Boothby, winner of both races tonight, took the pole, took the win, and for all I know, also took the quickest lap. And just confirming, he did take the quickest lap in both races, as far as I'm aware. Excellently driven, and a day that in a few weeks' time could be a championship-defining weekend here in Italy in an Italian marquee. Excellent stuff. And, well, I guess we got to come back next Friday and see the rebuttal from James Parker. What do you say, Ryan?
It's definitely going to be interesting to see what James Parker can do come next Friday. And, well, speaking of the next round of races, I think it's about time that we give the folks at home a little bit of a hint as to what's going to go on around RCI over the next 7 days. Where are we going? Well, we're heading to Donington Park tomorrow. We're flying out this evening, Jesse Lee, to catch the plane. It's just almost 11 o'clock at night, and we're going to be rushing off to the airport to catch our plane. We're going to head back to my place in Nottinghamshire, not too far away from the Donington Park circuit, because tomorrow we've got the 3 hours of Donington, part of the World Tour Championship. 3 hours of racing, 3 drivers per team, and of course the saga continues from the 24 hours of Kyalami. Racing Line Motorsport lead the championship. Can PCDC or Side Max stop them? Can they retake the lead of the championship away from the Italian team? We'll have to find out tomorrow evening. That race getting underway closer to, I think it's 5 UTC. It's going to be super, super exciting to see. Of course, one of my favorite tracks in the world, indeed. Donington Park, and fantastic to finally have it here in ACC. Nothing happening on Sunday. It's a day off for all of us.
Look at this!
Oh,
look at this!
Stewie's got the race program up. So if you haven't seen this already, you can check out the race program that we've made, or that I've made, sorry, for the 3 hours of Donington Park. Has all sorts of information about the competitors and the championship, and of course you can read all of that. And you can even see the championship standings there as well. Some of our partners and sponsors, Race Department, Sim Racing GP, obviously they help make a lot of this possible. Some very nice screenshots in the program as well. And in fact, we should be seeing a sunrise, I believe, at the 3 hours of Donington Park. It should be quite nice, as that one will be starting in the early hours of the morning sim time. But no racing on Sunday. But then on Monday, we will be back. We'll be remaining in the UK as it will be the British GT Championship heading to Snetterton for two 30-minute sprint races, much like the format that we've seen here tonight. Tuesday, it's another day off for everyone and a day off for us. But then on Wednesday, the Diamond Drive Cup returns. And what circuit are we at, Jesse, for the Diamond Drive Cup? You've been covering that alongside Nate. I think, are we at Barcelona for the fourth round of that championship? I believe we are. And the Diamond Drive Cup, it's been exciting so far. I've been enjoying sitting back and watching the races. I know you've been enjoying commentating on it. And
It's absolutely been lovely.
and
We are at Barcelona, by the way. You're absolutely correct. It's been fantastic. 30 plus drivers, 3 different categories: madness, insanity, thrill, spills, and chills. Absolutely love it. Don't miss it.
yeah, so the Diamond Drive Cup on Wednesday returns. No stream on Thursday. There is racing. It's the season finale of the GT4 Championship. And that will be wrapping up Bongo Barry's GT4 Championship, as everyone seems to be calling it at this point. And like I said, no stream for that, unfortunately, but there's always great racing out in the GT4s. Then on Friday, of course, we return, and we're going to be... Can you guess where we are, Jesse? Can you guess where we're going to be next Friday?
Is it at Donington?
It is at Donington. Can you guess what the format's going to be as well?
I believe, if my brain is correct, it's going to be 2 30-minute sprint races, just like we had tonight.
Absolutely correct. Jesse Lee gets 100 points for his quiz.
Yes!
And we are going to be back at Donington Park. So we're going to be visiting Donington Park twice within 7 days. And
no complaints
like I said,
for
two
me.
30-minute sprint races. The penultimate round of the season, by the way. We're almost done with this championship. And of course, next Saturday, by the way, not this Saturday, but the Saturday after, Night Owl will return. It's taking a hiatus because of 3 hours of Donington this weekend. But Night Owl will be returning on the 27th. And it's going to be at another British GT track. It's going to be at Alton Park. We're loving the British GT tracks at the moment. We want to race there as often as we can. And, well, Alton Park's going to be interesting. And I believe you'll be there alongside Ryan Mawson for commentary on that one, Jesse. The Night Owl race is always great fun to watch. And I'm sure the viewers will have missed you plenty this weekend for Night Owl.
Yes, because that's what they say. They all say, hey, get that American back on here. But yes, indeed, Night Owl returning not this weekend, but next weekend, meet with Ryan Mawson. And Ryan, I think basically what you're saying is whatever your fancy is in GT racing, I think we have you covered here at RCI.
Pretty much, yeah. And of course, you might have seen a little snip of it in the race program that Stewie just showcased. But we did have the announcement today of our new Monday Championship. I know British GT isn't over yet. Don't worry, we're not cutting it short. But the new Monday Championship has been announced. The Porsche Masters Cup. Porsche GT3s, Porsche Cup cars, and Porsche GT4s all on the same track at the same time. A 45-car grid per split.
Oh my God.
For the next Monday Championship. It's going to be absolutely amazing. We've got 75-minute races, no pit stop requirements at all for either or any of those races. We've got 6 fantastic circuits lined up as well. It's going to be super, super exciting. And that's not even forgetting the fact that guess what's going to happen not this Sunday, but next Sunday, Jesse?
What happens next Sunday, Ryan?
We've got the 12 Hours of Bathurst, courtesy of Jimmy Broadbent and Jaroslav Honzik.
Oh, yes, I forgot. I basically sold my soul to RCI next Sunday, not this coming Sunday, of course, simply out of love for both Jards and Jimmy Broadbent. And like Ryan said in the race, they said, hey, could you do this? And we said, well, of course we can.
Yeah, and of course the invitational split, which will be the one that is broadcast and live stewarded, will have multi-class racing as well. I'll be racing in the GT4 class alongside Billy Octane and Martin Lawrence. And there will be plenty of other cars out there as well. There'll be a couple of Maseratis on the grid and all sorts of different GT4s. It's going to be absolutely fantastic to see. And of course, that will be live from 8 UTC in the morning on the 28th of March. So much stuff coming up over, well, the next 7, 8, 9 days, however you want to word it. And of course, we hope to see you back for all of it here at RCI Racing. Thank you, or RCI TV rather. And thank you very much for everyone for sticking it out here tonight. Been absolutely fantastic to have your support. Go check out our partners, Race Department, AK Informatica, Speed Labs Pro, and Sim Racing GP. They all help make RCI possible in their own way. And of course, we're looking forward to the partnerships with them and, well, potentially a couple new companies coming on soon with the likes of, I believe, Gridfinder are potentially going to be partnering up with us soon, and a sim racing hardware manufacturer, which I cannot name, coming in the future as well. So loads of exciting stuff coming up around here. We've got loads of exciting racing going on tomorrow and across the next 7 days. We hope to see you for all of it. And, well, from the stewarding team, from myself, from Jesse Lee, from Stewie behind the cameras, who's done a phenomenal job here tonight, and everyone else at RCI TV, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.